I'm Bernina expert Amanda Murphy, and this is How I Quilt It, a series in which Bernina and I show you how to quilt popular blocks. In episode 1, we'll give you 3 videos featuring different options for quilting a 9-patch. In this video, I'll show you how to quilt the 3rd option. If you enjoy it, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Amanda Murphy Design. The other 2 options can be found on weallsew.com, Bernina's blog. In this block, I chose to quilt a simple petal design using a circle template in each of the pink squares. Then I added texture using one of my ribbon candy templates in the green square. After quilting around the entire block, I chose to quilt along the ditch between the squares, as I did in the first block design I showed on We All Sew. Right here, I'm using my every angle template to do that. Remember, the quilted line will always be a 1/4 inch away from the edge of the template, and I'm using my measuring gauge to check that. On a frame, like on a sit-down machine, it's important to stop the machine from running when you want to reposition your hand on the template. The template is being supported by a ruler base that is snapped on to the base of the machine, much like a table. The minute I feel my hand is not supported by that base, I stop the machine from running and I reposition both the template and my hand. After you finish stitching along the ditch, you'll mark the center of each of the pink squares, and you'll use a 4-inch circle template to connect the corners to the center to the corners again. So you can see here, I start in a corner. I stop and reposition my template if needed, and you can see right there I use my measuring gauge to make sure that the edge of my template was a 1/4 inch away from the point that I'm trying to hit. Just one more side here and this petal will be complete. Once again, I use my measuring gauge to gauge the distance from the edge of my template to the point I was trying to hit, and then I end in the corner. Once you've completed all the petals, it's time to quilt ribbon candy or some other free motion design that might create texture in the green areas. So you can see here, I'm using a 3.5-inch ribbon candy ruler in a 4-inch block. And that's so if I go over the edge, I don't have to think about it much. Since this design is a 1/2 inch smaller than the 4-inch block itself, I'll start a 1/4 inch away from the corner and I'll quilt the first ribbon candy motif. When I get to that little nook in the template, I then reposition the template and the black lines on the back side of the template go over my previous quilted lines. The dashed lines on the template help me stay square to my quilting area. This is one of the easiest templates to use because you're quilting an internal shape and it's very forgiving. Once you reach the edge of that square, I like to use the edge of the ribbon candy template to travel to the next square to be quilted. So once again, I start a 1/4 inch in, and I'm using the dashed lines to keep the square to the block, and I'll quilt up and away from myself this time. Since the template is completely symmetrical, it doesn't really matter which way you quilt. I have the template oriented like this because I like to hold my templates with my left hand while quilting on a frame, and I swing that left handlebar out of the way, but you could also hold it in your right if you wanted to quilt with your other hand. For those who love computerized quilting, quilting with the Bernina Q-matic in this case, or quilting with your embroidery hoop in the case of a domestic machine, I just wanted to show you another option. And here I quilted 2 different designs in alternating squares using the Bernina Q-matic. I believe this was one of the Celia designs, and then I use one of my OESD quilting designs in the other square. So you can do more than just edge to edge with computerized quilting. You can give your quilt a truly custom look. I also love to use the margin feature, available as of this filming on the Bernina Q-matic and also on the Bernina 790 Pro, and it allows me to add a nice margin to my design to ensure perfect placement. Next, sashing. I chose to quilt the sashing area with a leaf design, which is basically a S-curve. One of the things I love about this design is we don't tend to be as critical of it because, of course, leaves are always different in nature. One of the tips that I like to give is if you make your leaf point upwards at the tip, it almost always looks good. When you have it point down at the tip, it looks like it needs water. So I'm going to quilt all around my border, and then as I come back, I'm going to kind of nest into my stitches. So here we are. In the corner, I'm going to have to allow those leaves to get a little wider and to expand. And I try to get one right in the corner, but sometimes it doesn't work out. I try anyway. And I end my design by nesting into my previous stitching. So that's it. I hope you've enjoyed watching how to quilt a 9-patch, both on We All Sew and here on Amanda Murphy Design. I hope you subscribe, and I will see you on episode 2.